Will the House come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good afternoon. The devotional today will be led by former Representative Avram Pat of Worcester, who now lives in Montpelier.
Hello. Today, that sunset, is the beginning of Yom HaShoah, which is the recognized Memorial Day, Remembrance Day for the Holocaust. There are other days, such as the one that I actually grew up celebrating, but this is the one that most people recognize. The Holocaust, the origin of the word Holocaust, was actually used to describe this event, the Holocaust. It did not exist before that. It was put together by a historian and writer who realized that there was no word in our language that could describe the magnitude and the intent of what happened, and the worst that humanity is capable of. 6 million Jews in towns and cities in Europe, in the ghettos that the Nazis walled the Jews into, and in the concentration and death camps where trainloads were brought to be exterminated in gas chambers. 2 million other people died because of who they were and were targeted by the Nazis as well. I grew up among survivors, children of victims. My parents were refugees. They escaped Poland, got to the United States by a very circuitous means across 3 continents and an ocean. I grew up among survivors, children of victims. My maternal grandparents, I am named after my mother's father, were left behind in Warsaw, in the ghetto. And they were among the ones that were exterminated in the gas chambers of Treblinka. My grandfather, my father's father, happened to be in the United States when war broke out and returned to Europe after the war to hear the stories of survivors. He was a prolific writer, but he wrote 2 books about that experience. One of them right away, called Ash und Fire, Ashes and Fire, which has been translated into a few languages. The other one, he struggled to finish in his last years. It is called Chanke, and it was the story he had learned about his sister and her daughter, his niece, in the city of Bialystok, who were both involved in the resistance. The story is mostly about Chanke. They could not talk to each other about what they were doing. They knew that they were both in the resistance, but it would have been a threat to the lives of either of them for them to talk to others about what was going on. And so that book, Chanke, was finished in 2013. It was meant for an adolescent audience. My grandfather gave me a carbon copy of the typewritten manuscript at my bar mitzvah reception. But it's only until now that it has been finally translated into English so that more people can understand it, translated by my niece. And that will be published later this year. And I will be doing my best to let people in Vermont know that it's out there. To be in both English and Yiddish, as well as with some supplementary material. So I want to finish with a song. Among the partisans who fought and, for the most part, died in the resistance were younger people who in another life would have been doing something else. Some of them were poets and musicians and writers. And a number of songs were written. This one is called Jugendhymn, hymn, song of the youth. And I'll translate it and sing it for you. My voice is a little groggy today, and I'll do my best. Here's the translation. Our song is full of sorrow, but our steps are brave and cheerful. Although the enemy looms at the gate, youth storms forth with their song. Everyone is young who wants to be. Years have no meaning. The old can be children too in a newer, freer time. Those who wander the roads, those who set forth with a bold step, youth goes out to meet them with a greeting from the ghetto. We remember all of our enemies. We recall all of our friends. We will forever connect our yesterday with today. Unser Lied ist voll mit Treue, dreist ist unser munter Gang. Trotz der Säune ward beim Teuer, stürmt Jugend mit Gesang. Weil jung ist jeder, wer es will noch. Jorn haben kein Badeit. Alte kennen euch sein Kinder von einer neuen, freier Zeit. Wer es wogelt wegen, wer mit Dreiskeit stellt sein Fuß, schickt die Jugend ihm an Keggen von der Ghetto a Geruss, weil jung ist jeder, wer es will noch. Jorn haben kein Badeit, Alte kennen euch sein Kinder von einer neuen, freier Zeit. Mir gedenken alle Sonnim, mir dämonen alle Freund, ewig Wellen mir verbinden unser Nächten mitten Heint. Weil jung ist jeder, wer es will noch. Jorn haben kein Badeit. Alte kennen euch sein Kinder von einer neuen, freier Zeit. So let us remember, but most importantly, let us teach our children, all children, and the next generations that come about this event so they understand that there can be a better world. Thank you.
Members, we have two House bills for introduction today. The first is House Bill 509, which is an act relating to approval of an amendment to the charter of the City of Winooski, introduced by Representatives Verbeco of Winooski and Tomlinson of Winooski. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 509, an act relating to approval of an amendment to the charter of the City of Winooski.
Now the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. The second is House Bill 510, which is an act relating to repealing the charter of the town of Danville, introduced by Representative Burt of Cabot. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 510, an act relating to repealing the charter of the town of Danville.
Now you've heard the reading of the, now the bill has been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Members, we have a bill on the notice calendar requiring referral to a money committee pursuant to House Rule 35A. House Bill 86 is an act relating to establishing the chloride contamination reduction program at the Agency of Natural Resources. Affecting the revenue of the state, the bill is referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. Members, we have received a request to read a House concurrent resolution that the House and Senate adopted pursuant to the consent calendar. HCR 95 is a House concurrent resolution designating April 24th, 2025 as Vermont Children's Alliance Day at the State House. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas in Vermont, there are 13 child advocacy centers, CACs, focusing on the challenges and solutions to the continuing prevalence of child abuse in our state. And whereas these important organizations provide critical support and representational services to children whose needs can be acute and rely on the centers to assist in transforming their lives from ones that may be harsh to a potentially more promising future. And whereas a CAC provides forensic interviews, a safe meeting space, victim advocacy, and coordinated care to children that report sexual and physical abuse. And whereas the vision of the Vermont Children's Alliance, VCA, the CAC's membership organization, is to empower Vermont CACs to provide equal and reliable access to support, treatment, justice, and healing for every child. And whereas this vision is encompassed in the organization's mission to foster the growth of the CAC movement by providing statewide support and resources, promoting awareness of child abuse and its impact on our communities. And whereas today, April 24th, 2025, representatives of the VCA and its member CACs are visiting the State House to educate legislators on the importance of addressing the continuing problems associated with the abuse of our youngest Vermonters. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly designates April 24th, 2025 as Vermont Children's Alliance Day at the State House. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Vermont Children's Alliance.
Are there any announcements? Member from Wolcott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We just heard a resolution recognize the critical work being done in our state to protect and support some of our most vulnerable citizens, our children. Across Vermont, 13 child advocacy centers, known as CACs, are on the front lines of our response to child abuse. They are essential service in the fight to address the deep and lasting harm caused by abuse and neglect. These centers work closely with many agencies, including law enforcement, child protective services, mental health professionals, and prosecutors to ensure a coordinated and comprehensive response to child abuse cases. When a child comes forward to report abuse, that moment can be filled with fear, uncertainty, and trauma. The child advocacy centers provide a safe space where that child is heard through forensic interviews conducted with care and professionalism. They offer victim advocacy, coordinated care, and wraparound support that brings together law enforcement, health professionals, prosecutors, and social workers, centering the needs of the child. These centers do not work alone. They are united under the umbrella of the Vermont Child Alliance, whose vision is to ensure that every child in Vermont has equal and reliable access to support, treatment, and healing. These partnerships are funded through the Vermont Center for Crime Victim Services, the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, town appropriations, and grants. This month, the month of April, is nationally recognized as Child Abuse Prevention Month. It's a time when we are reminded of the importance of protecting all children, supporting families, and ensuring that prevention efforts reach every corner of our state. We are joined today by the directors of the child advocacy centers from across our state. Please join me in welcoming them to the People's House. They are seated behind me in the gallery.
Will the guests of the member from Wolcott please rise and be recognized? Member from East Montpelier.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to take a moment and invite the full body to further acknowledge the importance of this day and to recognize several guests with us on this Yom HaShoah Holocaust Remembrance Day. With us today in the balcony are Tom and Jill Glazer from Shelburne. Tom is the son of Holocaust survivors. He grew up with a passion for skiing, raced with the UVM ski team, and was a champion stock car racer, among other things, and the founder of Burlington Foreign Car Parts. Since Tom and Jill sold the business in 2019, Tom has focused some time on telling his family's Holocaust survival story, speaking in schools and across the state. He's a board member with the Vermont Holocaust Memorial, a vital Vermont institution committed to teaching the lessons of the Holocaust by honoring lives lost and sharing stories of survival in our state's high schools. The virtual museum provides professional development, a speakers bureau, projects and exhibits, and advocates for the Holocaust to be a required part of high school curriculums. To honor this day, as well as our Holocaust Memorial and Tom and Jill's visit to the State House, I'd like to share a bit of my own family's story. My grandparents lost most of our family members still living in Europe in the Holocaust. We also had a few family members that survived. My great aunt Betty was a young child when her village of Trochenbrod was massacred. She and her surviving family spent years in hiding in the forest, defying all odds and enduring all kinds of horrors. Some of them survived and finally made it to the US under the sponsorship of my great-grandfather in Cleveland, Ohio. Betty was not a public speaker, and the trauma of the Holocaust left her largely unable to talk about her childhood. Yet in her later life, she found solace and purpose in telling her story with the Maltz Museum in Cleveland. Madam Speaker, may I quote from a memoir written by my great aunt?
You may.
Students in middle school, junior high, or high school come to the museum after having studied the Holocaust. The main message I try to give them is that they must stand up against prejudice, discrimination, and hatred, because hatred is not something we are born with. We don't inherit it. We learn it, so it can be unlearned. Sadly, some of our older groups, college students and adults, really don't know much about the Holocaust. They know that the Holocaust happened, but they don't know the details. These days, unless it's a subject you've studied or you're a history major, you might not know the details. They listen to you and respond, "Oh, really? Oh my, how could this happen?" But how can they know? The Holocaust is impossible to understand and even more difficult to explain. I don't care how much one has read or written about the Holocaust. I don't care how many films one has seen about the tragedy or has heard about it. The Holocaust was so massively horrific that it becomes enormously difficult to describe it even adequately, let alone fully. The Vermont Holocaust Memorial envisions a time when prejudice, bigotry, and hatred will be replaced with respect for all. In the Holocaust, over a third of the global Jewish population was killed. 2 out of every 3 Jews in Europe were murdered. I want to acknowledge the important role that our country, particularly our military, played in helping bring an end to World War II and the Holocaust, which included great sacrifice, and the many citizens of Europe that took great personal risk to hide and protect Jewish people under Nazi rule, including my family. Their bravery and willingness to take a stand on behalf of those being persecuted and to do what they knew was right helped save lives, ease suffering, and show and share humanity. I want to thank Tom and Jill Glazer and all the staff and volunteers that work with the Vermont Holocaust Memorial to provide educational opportunities and advocate for educating our high school students statewide about the Holocaust. We also have guests Freda and Leo Neiman and Mallory Parker with us today, whose families survived the Holocaust. And I want to thank and welcome former Representative Avram Pat, who happens to also be my stepfather-in-law, for doing such a heartfelt devotional about his family to mark the day. We must all continue to tell our stories so that collectively we will never forget. Please help me welcome all of them to the People's House.
Will the former member and guest of the member of East Montpelier please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Member from Bennington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's with great reverence that today, as well, another Remembrance Day, that I rise to recognize the 110th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. Often noted as the first genocide of the 20th century, it was on April 24th, 1915, that the Ottoman Empire's campaign to ethnically cleanse the eastern provinces inhabited by Armenians began. The Ottoman Empire would send over the next year and a half more than 1 million Armenian Christians across the Syrian desert to certain death as they sought to displace them in the name of national security. Madam Speaker, may I quote a part of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum's statement regarding the Armenian genocide?
You may.
The victims of the Armenian genocide include people killed in local massacres that began in the spring of 1915, others who died during deportations under conditions of starvation, dehydration, exposure, and disease, and Armenians who died in or en route to the desert regions of the Southern Empire, which today would be northern and eastern Syria, northern Saudi Arabia, and Iraq. In addition, tens of thousands of Armenian children were forcibly removed from their families and converted to Islam. It is important to note that we mustn't forget that the Armenian genocide and the events that took place in 1915 would serve as the foundation for the perpetration of the Holocaust a quarter century later. And I do want to thank the Holocaust Museum for their account and information regarding the history of this event. And Madam Speaker, I have folks back home that have either immigrated from Armenia to Vermont or have Armenian heritage, and I just felt that it was important that we remember their history today.
Thank you, member. Member from Milton.
Madam Speaker, the Milton delegation is deeply saddened by the tragic event that occurred last night in our community. Our thoughts are with those affected, especially Police Sergeant Paul Locke, who was wounded in the line of duty. Fortunately, his injuries ended up not being life-threatening. We commend Sergeant Locke's bravery, the swift response of Milton's emergency personnel, and the support from statewide agencies. Their courage and dedication in the face of danger exemplify the very best of public service, and we are thankful for all they do to keep our communities safe.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the officer and his family. Are there any further announcements? Seeing none. Orders of the day. Members, we have one bill on our action calendar today. That is Senate Bill 36, which is an act relating to the Medicaid payment model for residential substance use disorder treatment services. Member from Colchester.
Madam Speaker, I would make a motion that we delay action by one legislative day on this bill.
The member from Colchester moves that we postpone action on Senate Bill 36 for one legislative day. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have postponed action on Senate Bill 36 for one legislative day. Members, that completes the orders of the day. Members, the chair has one announcement. Yesterday, the House Committee on Rules met and appointed Representative Sibilia of Dover to the House Discrimination Prevention Panel. Are there any further announcements? Seeing none. Member from Poultney, can you please offer us a motion to adjourn until Friday, April 25th at 9:30 a.m.?
Madam Speaker, I make a motion this body stand in adjournment until Friday, April 25th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m.
The member from Poultney moves that we adjourn until Friday, April 25th at 9:30 a.m. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and this body stands in adjournment until tomorrow at 9:30.